When it comes to Konami's Ganbare Goemon, I'm a huge fan. I'm probably one of the biggest Goemon fans in the world, really. And if you know me, you know that's not hyperbole. I've done my fair share of videos talking about its various Japan exclusive entries, and I'm an avid collector of all things Goemon. I have a complete set of the 30 plus games in the series, and while Ganbare Goemon was never slapped onto as much licensed merch as a Mario or a Dragon Quest slime, there are still many cool collectibles for the series, big and small. There are even a few Goemon titles that were never made available at retail, one of which I actually own. And no, I'm not talking about the infamous Patchy slot machines. Rather, it's something a little more obscure and with a bit more history. The Ganbare Goemon Metal game from 1997. Now, before we get into the details of this particular metal game, I think it's best to briefly go over what a metal game actually is first. At Japanese arcades, of course you'll find the fighting, shooting, rhythm games, etc. that you'd expect, in addition to those vapid purikura photo booths that have infected the game center scene like a disease. But oftentimes there will be a section dedicated to pachinko, slots, and other gambling machines, and it's here where you'll most likely find classic metal games as well. They're redemption-style games that come in many different flavors, but the most common and well-known one is the pusher type, where the player drops coins onto a raised platform in hopes that a mechanical broom will push more coins down further and ultimately over a ledge at the bottom, thus earning more coins and maybe even triggering some kind of bonus mode. Outside of Japan, you'll typically see these pusher machines at fairs or arcades that cater to children. The currency used in a vast majority of metal games isn't hard cash, but rather metal tokens called, you guessed it, medals, which can be obtained by exchanging real money for them at a machine. Although they simulate gambling, unlike pachinko, which exploits a loophole in Japan's gambling laws to offer real cash rewards, there are no monetary gains to be had from playing metal games. In fact, a majority of arcades these days don't even offer up any real prizes at all for all the medals you earn. And instead, the only thing you can win is more medals, which can be counted and recorded on a slip of paper so you can play with them again at the establishment sometime in the future. So when you think about it, it's kind of the real-world equivalent of an awful casual mobile game. Just there to pass the time. Time that you'll never get back, and certainly regret wasting so frivolously. Video game-themed metal games were abundant throughout the 80s and 90s, not just because of their appeal to children, a big demographic of metal game players, but also because it was generally video game companies who manufactured the machines, so it was easy to use their own established properties to ensure business was good. Ooh, Adventure of Valkyrie. That's a great game, as I'm sure you already know. Something you definitely know is that Goemon and friends would also find themselves plastered onto a metal game over a decade before the much maligned Konami Pachinko years. Simply titled Ganbare Goemon, this isn't a pusher style metal game, but something that resembles a simple arcade title featuring an even simpler one-button gameplay setup, accompanied by the great 2D art style and sounds fans of the series would have been accustomed to in the mid-90s. In arcade game tradition, the instructions are presented in-game as it waits for players to insert their coins, but are naturally found on the arcade marquee as well. Pressing the big red button found on the front of the machine will cause Goemon to throw his Koban coin forward, aiming to hit a target in order for the user to gain medals. The targets consist of classic Ganbare Goemon power-up items, as well as Seppukumaru's henchmen from Ganbare Goemon 4 on the Super Famicom. Yae, Sasuke, Ebisumaru, and the Wise Men also appear in the game, but striking any of them results in a game over. Goemon will use a trampoline to leap high into the sky to reach his target, and each friend, enemy, and item is found on a different level of a castle roof. Numbers between 1 and 20 are displayed beside each target, and scoring a successful hit means you earn the amount of coins equal to that number. It can be difficult to gauge exactly what constitutes a hit or not, but basically, try for the center of a target, and the greater the number on the target, the smaller the hitbox. I've tried many times, but my aim has never been true in going for the Senryo Bako and its 20 medal reward. You can insert up to 3 medals at a time to increase the size of Goemon's Koban coin, which acts as a multiplier. Anyway, here's the game in raw action. Let's try that again. That's more like it. Now give me them sweet medals. There's really not much more to say about the game itself. It was designed as a fun diversion for Goemon fans to potentially experience some cheap thrills and win some medals, but more often than not, lose time as well as money. But anyway, let's take a look at the outside and inside of the machine itself for a minute. As you can see, it's a little bulky, standing at about 1 meter or a little over 3 feet, and because it uses a CRT display, it's pretty heavy. Thankfully, it comes on wheels that make it easy to move around. As you probably noticed earlier, the screen is unfortunately plagued with CRT burn-in, and a faint ghost image of Ebisumaru explaining the game rules can be seen whether the set is turned on or off. There's a lot of wear, tear, and fading on some of the stickers, but the serial number is still intact and looks fine. Overall, while it's apparent this unit saw a lot of action when it was in its prime, it's still in pretty great shape considering all the kicks, punches, and general abuse it must have received from pint-sized, unsupervised brats throwing temper tantrums over the years. I have a set of keys for this metal game, thankfully, so we can take a look at its guts as well. Ah, now isn't that lovely? Here on the other side of the door is all the mechanical wizardry responsible for moving metals and activating credits. Up to 600 coins in the hopper and 1600 in the overflow tank can be stored at any given time. There are some wooden compartments that I assume were designed to hold some tools or extra metals, and in the very back of the interior is where the computer board is mounted. It's kind of neat to see the ludicrous amount of wires that connect to the display, speaker, and other mechanisms. The lower section is home to the master power switch, money counters, and 3 buttons. Pushing the top one will add 1 credit to the game, handy for those times a player had to call over an arcade employee when the machine ate their medals or the game glitched out. Holding down the lower button disperses coins, and the middle cycles through various screens that allow the user to run tests, run sound checks, and most interesting of all, view the various records related to the game, including hit ratios for targets, payout rates, and just how many medals have made their way to the unit. Damn, this particular machine made Konami quite the amount of green over the years. An operator's manual was included that contains all the standard instructions for setup and maintenance, but also shows the various components that make up the unit. Well, that's a look at the Ganbare Goemon metal game from 1997. It may not mean much to the average person, and might even seem like a waste of space to most, but for a Goemon fan in love with the series and its history, this is an awesome thing to play and own. Seeing it up close and in action is like taking a trip back to a better time for Goemon, right when the series was arguably at the top of its game. If you're really lucky, you might just be able to find one of these units still in operation at some old shopping mall out in the Japanese countryside, but barring a miracle like that, they're pretty hard to find, especially in working order. However, once in a while one will pop up for sale on sites like Yahoo Auctions, and usually for a pretty reasonable price. I managed to snag this one for about $75, the only downside being that shipping was just a hair more expensive than the machine itself. Anyway, I'm glad to have this in my collection, and to all the Goemon fans out there, if you're ever around the Hapa home, feel free to give it a try. Metal's on the house, of course. But until that time comes, thanks for watching Import Gaming for the Win Chibisodes, and take care.